Will Dalton, Kincaid, and Clark Phillips be first round picks? And how many Utes will get drafted? We're talking about it on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day. We are available on all platforms, including YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, I want to thank you guys once again for helping us surpass over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube last week. Your guys' support means the world to us here at Locked On Utes. So if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, continue to like, support our show. We'd love to interact with you guys on social media. You can hit us up at Locked On Utes or at JT Wistrcill. My name is JT Wistrcill, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. And on today's show, we're talking all things NFL draft because we are less than a month away from the 2023 NFL draft. And a lot of Utes are going to have a chance to hear their name called. So let's dive into it and talk about those Utes. We'll talk about the guys who will go in the mid rounds coming up, but got to start with the two guys with a shot to go in the first round and two of the best players to come through Utah recently. And that is Dalton Kincaid and Clark Phillips. And let's start with Dalton because it just feels like right now Dalton's stock is higher than Clark's at the moment. I think we'd all be surprised if Dalton didn't go in the first round. Now, I'll say the first round is always full of some surprises, right? Let's look back to last year when everyone thought Devin Lloyd would be a pick in the teens, and then he ended up falling into the late 20s and was great for the Jaguars this past year. So just shows you don't sleep on those Utah guys. But talking about Dalton, I definitely feel like Dalton's going to go in the first round. So to me, just looking at the teams right now, I think Dalton, the earliest we would see Dalton go is like 16. I just think with Dalton, he's ready to win right now. I think he's the kind of player that you're going to bring in. I don't think look, Dalton can play in the NFL. I think he could easily have a 10-year career, but I think you're more so it's like he's ready to win now. He's not a project. He doesn't have the physical tools or the upside, let's say, that some of the other guys do. I think Dalton is going to walk in the NFL and be exceptionally good. Could he get a little bit better down the road? Yeah, but I don't think it's going to be a huge jump. I think he can instantly want to be one of the 10 best tight ends in the NFL, especially if he lands in the right fit. So because he's a ready to win now player, and once again, just a guy with not the craziest upside in the world, I personally believe he will go later because I think he's more of a fit for teams that want to win now. So who are those teams that come to mind? I think the earliest is the Commanders. I saw Daniel Jeremiah had him mocked to the Commanders overall at 16. I could see that just because there's been some rumors and issues with them and Logan Thomas trying to work out long-term stuff. And look, they got Sam Howell on a rookie deal. Maybe they want to give him legit outside pass catcher or legit tight end, excuse me, because obviously they have Curtis Samuel. They got a bunch of other guys out. Terry McLaurin is the main one I'm forgetting. Obviously, hello, he's only one of the best receivers of the NFL. But they got some guys. But so to me, I'd be surprised if he went at 16. But I think that is hey, when Daniel Jeremiah is saying it, I'm going to listen. And that is the interesting thing. Talk about the draft analysts in general. Dalton has been consistently in the top 5 for tight ends overall. He's pretty much locked into the top 3 now. He's really seen his stock rise as more people really had a chance to dive into his tape because I think during the season, a lot of people were so enamored with with Georgia and everything they had going on. And as you kind of dive into the tape, some of these draft guys, you start to really fall in love with everything that Dalton Kincaid did because a lot of guys see their stock rise over the season who don't come into the season with the biggest name. Dalton Kincaid was a name we all liked and thought he could go in the draft, got a combine invite last year, but I don't think scouts were as crazy about him as that. Now you've seen that kind of flip, right? Where Todd McShay really likes him. Mel Kiper really likes him. Already mentioned how much Daniel Jeremiah loves him. Pretty much every major NFL draft analyst has Dalton as one of the two, as either 1 or 2 tight end that I've seen. I think some have him at 3. They like Sam Laporta a little bit more, but either way, to me, I think that Dalton is going to be, I'd be shocked if Dalton doesn't go in the first round is basically the point I'm making. And it feels like that's what it's lining up with the draft analysts. So as I said, earliest I could see him is Commanders at 16. Lions traded away TJ Hawkinson. So maybe there's a world where they might like him at 18, but where it gets way more interesting to me, there are 2 teams in particular that I think if I had to, let's say, make a bet on it with our friends at FanDuel, that I would bet on. The first one is the Chargers, which I know would make Steve Bartle very happy. Congratulations to Steve Bartle, by the way. Just that him and his wife Kendra just had their baby, so congrats to them. But the Chargers, they make a lot of sense to me. Justin Herbert, you're about to pay him. You want to get young weapons for him on the outside. Get a guy in Dalton Kincaid, a reliable tight end who we can pair with. And I can just already picture Kincaid making miraculous grabs for them for touchdowns and doing all kinds of incredible things because Dalton belongs in the first round conversation. When you look at what he does, he catches passes, he produces, he's a good blocker, but the best thing he does is he just has that ability to get open. He has a big body, good catch radius, does a great job adjusting the balls. He made a number of crazy catches last year just because of his ability to track the ball and adjust to it in the air. So Dalton absolutely deserves to be in the first round to me and does a really good job against beating like man coverage against safeties, or if it's zone, he does a great job finding those open and soft spots. So to me, Dalton would make a ton of sense with a quarterback like Justin Herbert, and I think would be a great weapon for Herbert in general. Jaguars at 24. I know they just signed Evan Ingram, but that's only a franchise tag, so kind of a short-term thing. Maybe they want to get two tight ends. Doug Peterson, their head coach, they've had a lot of success with two tight end sets, going back to when Trey Burton and then Zach Ertz won the Super Bowl under him at the Eagles when those were his two tight ends. So I think that if you want to get another elite tight end, I think Dalton could make some sense there. The Giants, Cowboys, also two interesting teams. Both of those teams don't really have a viable tight end option picking after 25 and up. So those make sense. But the other one, I mentioned there were two teams that I really like for Dalton. The first one is the Chargers. I think the second one's the Bengals. And I'm not the first one to claim this. There are a lot of people who think Dalton to the Bengals makes a lot of sense. Look, they're going to have to pay Jamar Chase coming up here a lot of money. We already know Joe Burrow's going to get the bag. We'll see what they end up doing with T. Higgins there. But they just played Orlando Brown. You need to get some young guys on the offense that are on those rookie deals once again. And I think it'd be nice after they just lost Hayden Hurst to Carolina to bring in a guy like Dalton Kincaid. So I think Dalton makes a lot of sense to the Bengals at 28 if he falls there. And to me right now, just based on everything we've seen in mocks, crazy things happen. Sometimes guys fall in drafts. Tight end isn't the most valued position in the NFL, obviously. But if you can get a special one, we've seen what he can do with the guys like Travis Kelce of the world, Mark Andrews, Darren Waller. There's been a lot of really George Kittle. There's a lot of really successful, and some of the best teams in the NFL have some of the best tight ends. Even the Eagles this year in the Super Bowl. Dallas Goedert is really good too. So to me, at the Bengals at 28 is the floor right now for Dalton. I think that's the lowest he goes if the draft was tomorrow, let's say, just based on everything we're hearing. And I think Joe Burrow would absolutely love Dalton Kincaid. I just think, once again, Dalton's just one of those guys who just finds a way to get open, finds a way to make those tough grabs. He's a guy who's going to make a number of highlight catches in the end zone next season. So for Dalton, I really think that he is going to go in the first round, and I would love to see him with either the Chargers or the Bengals. So moving on to our second guy we mentioned that. So Dalton, yes, he's going in the first round. Unfortunately, at this moment, I do not feel like Clark Phillips is going to go in the first round. I think it's because of the height. I think you see a lot of guys. I think it was Mel Kiper. I was looking at his top 10 corners. He didn't have Clark in there. Chris Sims recently published his draft corner rankings. He didn't have Clark in his top 8. He did like a legit top 5, but Clark wasn't even an honorable mention. Now, I think Clark is a lock to go in the second round. I think when you look at what does Clark do well, he does what a corner does very well. He's exceptional in coverage, and you need guys to cover in the NFL, which how much receiver talent is out there. So I think when you're talking about Clark, I think he will go in the second round. I just think those height concerns, especially with draft, right? This is the draft season where we're at pro days. We're overreacting to measurements and blazing fast 40 times and all those other things. And Clark is an exceptional athlete. I mean, he can leap out the gym. I mean, or off the field. I mean, like I said, I played basketball with him before, so I just see him leap off the gym. But obviously, we've seen some of the picks he made. He can go up and absolutely high point some of those passes. He plays a lot bigger than his size. But when these NFL GMs look at their draft guys and they see his size, that does turn him off a little bit. So I think that's where if you are Clark in this situation, I think he will drop a little bit. I think that'll be a mistake. I think in redrafts we'll see Clark belonged in the first round as he kind of did early on. He's one of those guys where once again, when all the numbers and the things that aren't about play on the field come into play, there's a lot of mistakes and guys get overdrafted off those issues, as my dog Thor wants to make a cameo because he is also disgusted about the lack of respect that Clark Phillips is currently getting at this moment as he leaves the room because he just can't stand it anymore, just like me. So with Clark, I just feel like he should be in the first round, but I think because of the size right now is why we're seeing him get knocked down a little bit. I think there's questions about if he can hang with some of the top guys on the outside, just because you think of the Mike Evans, Julio Jones is up there in age now, but I'll go like an AJ Brown, like just the size of those receivers. Is he going to be able to come down with those jump balls? Are they going to be able to moss him a lot and all those kind of things? And like I said, I think there's some other like small concerns with Clark. There were tackling issues at time last season I saw, but overall, I think he's still a strong tackler and he's exceptional in coverage. He's got great ball skills. We saw him have multiple interceptions. So to me, Clark absolutely should go in the first round. Unfortunately, I think, and unfairly, I will add, because of his height, I think he will go in the second round. But he will definitely be the second highest Ute drafted, and it'll be nice to have a Ute's name called on the first night of the draft and the second night of the draft, because that was something we didn't see last year. We only had one go in the first, no one in the second. Then obviously the 2020 draft, Utah was not very or in the 2021 draft, Utah not extremely well represented out of that one. So either way, I'm looking forward to seeing where these guys end up at in the NFL draft. And I didn't mention any specific teams for Clark. That's just because Clark is an outstanding corner. Every team in the NFL can use corners. Corner is a much more a position of need than tight end. That's why Dalton is like, okay, only certain teams are going to feel like we got enough of the other roster spots good enough. We'll take a tight end here, like the Chargers, like the Bengals. There's a lot of teams that need corner help, and a lot of teams are going to be ecstatic if Clark Phillips III falls to them in the second round. And like we said, hopefully in the first round, but I'm not holding on hope for that one. So either way, will be interesting to see how it plays out. And hopefully Clark's one of those guys who sees his stock climb late. But either way, Dalton definitely going to go in the first round as of right now, it feels like. We're going to talk about the rest of the Utes with a chance to get drafted in a moment. But first, I want to talk to you guys about our friends from Built Bar. Looking for a delicious treat, but don't want all the fat and calories, and you got to try a Built Bar. I'm still trying to keep my New Year's resolution going, still trying to stay committed, losing weight, doing everything. My goal is to lose a few pounds, and something that's helps me be able to do that is Built Bars. They're healthy and actually tasty. Seriously, they're so delicious, you won't think they're good for you. Perfect for your New Year's resolution. What makes Built Bar so good? Well, for starters, they're all covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate, and they come in unbelievably great flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is they're healthy. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around to get a box. For years, we've talked about ordering your Built Bars at Built.com. Now you can go and just get them at your local Smith's or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your local Smith's or Sam's Club today. Grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, coconut puffs, salted caramel brownie batter puffs at your nearest Smith's. If you're close to Sam's Club, run and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter and churro. You guys can thank me later. But once again, Smith's, Sam's Club, or just keep it going like you guys have with Built.com. Always a great shout out to our friends at Built. Also, want to talk to you guys about our friends and the sponsor of this episode in UCCU. It's the perfect time to open a low-rate home equity line of credit from UCCU. Over time, the value of your home goes up. As you make payments, the balance you owe goes down. The space in between is equity, and it's yours. A UCCU home equity line of credit can put that equity to work for you, like finishing your basement or yard and raising your home's value, or paying off high-interest loans and getting out of debt faster, or helping with a college or weddings, or just the peace of mind that comes from knowing you have a low-rate line of credit ready for whatever, whenever. UCCU also provide you with your very own home equity Visa card, giving you instant access to your equity. If you already have home equity with another financial institution, just refinance with UCCU and save. To learn more or to start your application today, visit uccu.com or stop by any branch. UCCU, love where you bank. All right, so keeping it going, we mentioned Dalton, first round lock. Clark feels like a second round lock right now. So what about the rest of the Utes? I think the next guy who's going to hear his name called is Braden Daniels. Now, Braden's interesting. I think Braden, Braden was obviously outstanding for the Utes at left tackle last year. I think against he just in the NFL, I just think against the elite of the elite pass rushers, that's where he might struggle a little bit, and just size concern wise and everything. So I think he will be a guard at the NFL level. And I think Braden is outstanding. I think if he needed to, I think he would be a good tackle in the NFL. I think he can be an exceptional guard. And I expect most teams when they draft him want him to play inside. And I really think he can be a day one starter for pretty much any team. We know he's a versatile guy. He's played all over the offensive line. He's highly intelligent, knows all the positions, got him down to a T. So, has outstanding strength, plays with really good technique. He was a shining star for the Utes at left tackle last year. Absolutely deserved first team All Pac-12. And look, as I said, I think there's a shot he could be good in the NFL, but he's just one of those guys. I think just because of the size, he'd be even better at guard. So I expect him to be a guard. So then, okay, well, where's he going to go? Well, I said anywhere in between the third, the fourth, and at worst, I see the fifth round. I just think he's too quality of a starter with his experience. He's proven he can play against the best at a very high level. He's played in a ton of big games. He's not a project or anything to me. He tested extremely well at the NFL Combine too, I will add. So to me, and look, offensive guards are not as important as offensive tackles, but there's interior offensive linemen are still exceptionally important to the success of your offense because interior pressure, that ruins everything. The reason offensive tackles are more valuable than interior offensive linemen is interior offensive linemen. Let's say if you're dealing with the Aaron Donalds or some elite defensive tackle, it is easier to double them than let's say if you're dealing with a great edge rusher on the outside. You have to do more things, like you have to use a tight end to chip, which takes away a passing element basically, or just leads to a delay in that tight end getting out. So that's where offensive tackles have more draft value, but offensive guards still exceptionally important to an offense's success. So I still see Braden getting drafted in the mid rounds right now. And he's another guy I expect to kind of, once draft season is over and like we're looking at this again a year from now, I think we'll be looking at it and saying he should have gone higher. Just like with Devin Lloyd, I think in a redraft, Devin Lloyd absolutely goes higher for all the success he had in year one with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So once again, Braden Daniels going to be in the 3, 4, kind of fifth round range right there, but I don't expect him to be in the 6th or the 7th. So that's 3 Utes drafted for sure. I do think there will be one more. And I mentioned Devin Lloyd, the linebacker for Utah last year, who was exceptional, obviously, and has had an awesome career in the NFL. There was a guy brought in that a lot of us kind of mistakenly dubbed like, oh, he's going to be the Devin Lloyd replacement. Well, he wasn't that, but he provided a lot of good snaps for the Utes last year and definitely helped them still repeat his Pac-12 championship. Pac-12 champion, excuse me, and that's Mahmoud Diabate. And when you're talking about Diabate, he's a guy that I do feel like because of how I just talked about with Clark, right? All of the combine stuff, maybe a little bit hurt his stock a little bit. The measurements, all of that, maybe is going to go him down because he's not as much of one of those guys you just walk into a room and you're like, whoa, like he's really impressive, and then he's blowing up on the testing numbers and all that stuff. So that's going to hurt Clark, right or wrong. I think Diabate is a guy who's going to exceptionally benefit from all of that stuff because of how he performed at the NFL Combine, or excuse me, not the NFL Combine, because he didn't get an invite to the Combine. He got snubbed. He would have been a star at the NFL Combine, but instead he was sensational for Utah at their pro day, where he was weighed in at 6'3", 225, ran 4.5 40, had the 34-inch vertical, the 11 broad jump, which would have been the best of anyone invited to the NFL Combine. Cough, cough, NFL should have just let him go, and 20 reps on the bench. So I think with Diabate, I've said before, I feel like he is best utilized as an outside linebacker, maybe in goal line packages. You bring him in and have him as an inside linebacker, but he's not great in coverage to me. I do think with Diabate, though, he's a really good tackler. He's great when he sees a hole and he sees a running back, a gap that he can shoot through, does it at a lightning quick pace. So that's where I think Diabate provides a ton of value. And he was a great blitzer for this Utah team. He has a lot more experience on the outside than he does on the inside. So to me, if I'm an NFL team, he's just the kind of guy that I want to bring him in and I want to kind of work with him and see if we can develop him, because I think with Diabate, I absolutely think he can be an elite player, an elite rotational player at the NFL level. So I do think, but there are those questions just because some of the struggles he had last year in coverage, what position he's going to be. Is he a tweener? I think he does fall to like the 6th or 7th round. I personally think he will get selected in the 7th round. 7th rounders where we see a lot of teams take swings on these guys. So I do think Diabate is the guy who really more so than anything has one kind of like the postseason who's raised their stock the most. I feel like it is Diabate. I think Dalton's stock has just gone up simply from people just watching film and realizing how good this dude is. And then it was Diabate based on how he performed at his pro day. I feel like that has put him in a better position to get drafted. So I feel like Diabate will go in the 7th. And unfortunately, at this moment, I do feel like that is it for Utah players that will get drafted. So I think it's those 4. So Dalton in the 1st round, Clark in the 2nd round, Braden Daniels, we'll say the 4th round, just for the sake of giving a number on it right now. Excuse me. And then for Diabate, we'll go the 7th. So that's 4 drafted, which is better than Utah had last year. Let's put that back to last year. Once again, Devin Lloyd, that was it. So it's nice to have 4 more guys drafted. And look, there's a couple of other guys with chances to get drafted. One of those is Tavion Thomas. I just think with Tavion Thomas, the way it ended, his time, his last season when at Utah, pair that with his poor testing numbers where he didn't run a great 40 and the 4.7s that he was hoping to, I do not see him getting drafted. I do think he will be signed as an undrafted free agent, and I think he'll have a chance to make some noise in a camp, but I just don't think, because of those poor testing speeds and once again, just kind of the way the season ended last year for him, I don't see him getting drafted at this moment. Next up, we'll go Logan Kendall as the guy. I think the team is going to be really excited to bring Logan Kendall in and utilize him as a fullback. I think he's going to be a great blocker for someone, and he was just throwing dudes around against Penn State. Like, I think he had an exceptional game in terms of what he did, and you already hear Coach Witt even yesterday at the media availability, or excuse me, not yesterday, but last week, mentioned how with a guy like Logan Kendall, like they felt like they needed to move a defensive lineman in Mickey Sugaturaga over to tight end to replace him because of how good of a blocker he was. So I do feel like that Logan Kendall is going to get a shot with the team as an undrafted free agent just because he's an awesome blocker. And I think that he's going to be a huge asset to any offense at the fullback spot. A couple other guys I think will get undrafted free agents. Gabe Reed, nice veteran DN for Utah this past season, did a lot of great things for the Utes. I think he lacks the overall speed and athleticism to get drafted, but I do think teams will bring him into camp and be intrigued by him. Just a veteran, savvy pass rusher, as I mentioned. I think that have a chance to make a little bit of noise in camp. And the last one I'll go is RJ Hubert. Look, the Rose Bowl wasn't his best game, but he's a ball hawk who still provided a lot of fun memories for this Utah team, made a number of big touchdown saving tackles too. I think RJ Hubert gets a chance. And then the other 2 guys the 2 guys on the bubble for getting undrafted free agent deals to me, and I hope they do. I just think they're on the bubble is Jalen Dixon, Solomon Enos. It's wide receiver is a loaded position right now in the NFL. There are so many great players in the league. There's tons coming out in this draft too. This is a down year in terms of the top talent, but there's a lot of those middle round guys I think that could be big boomer bust guys. So I do think Dixon and Enos are two of those bubble guys, which hopefully they get undrafted free agent invites. But I think it is up in the air when you look Enos, an exceptional blocker on the outside, but struggles to separate a little bit, but does have a good catch radius. So maybe teams will be intrigued by that. Jalen Dixon, a shorter slot receiver, really provides some speed and shiftiness in the slot, but another guy where is he big enough to last in the NFL level on some of those hits? Once again, those are questions I think that NFL teams will have for these guys. I think both of these guys would be able to come in and contribute on practice squads for teams, but we'll see how the NFL views them. So either way, it'll be interesting to see how it works out for Utes. But just recapping it, Dalton drafted in the first. Clark feel like he's going in the second if the draft was tomorrow. Braden, third or fourth round. And then Mahmoud Diabate squeezing in sometime in the seventh round. So either way, it'll just be outstanding for the Utes just to see them get four guys drafted, and just once again speaks to the upward trajectory of this program. And man, based on this class we just brought in recruiting wise, the 2023 recruiting class, I can't wait to see the Utes that are entering the draft in, let's say, the 2026 NFL draft and all, like the 2027. I think it's going to be some really special players for this Utah team. So it's going to be fun to see how it all works out for them. We're going to talk a little bit more about what it means for Utah to have so many of these players drafted in a moment. But first, I want to talk to you guys about our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. As we peel back in the curtain, we didn't open the FanDuel app. So we appreciate our people from FanDuel sticking with us. But as you guys know, the NBA season is heating up. We are down to the last couple games, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. That's because right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and sign up today to claim your no-sweat first bet. Then you can wager on everything to the money line, to the point spread, to which team will be cutting down the net. All in an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So don't miss your shot at a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Once again, make sure you guys head over to FanDuel to get in on all those great NBA odds. We got a ton of other things you can bet on: money line, point spread, two threes bet, which is a 2 threes made in the first 2 minutes of a game. So lots of fun stuff going on at FanDuel over there, and we appreciate them as always. All right, so closing out with a quick little take for Utah, that it's just, once again, just speaks to the position that this Utah football program is in, that back-to-back years they are going to be producing first-round picks. That is something that you only see the best teams do. Look, we know that Alabama produces a number of them, obviously, but I think about the position a program like Texas is in, which, yes, Bijan Robinson will be a first-round pick this year. How about last year? I don't remember hearing any Texas players last year. So it just shows you how hard it is, even for some of the blue blood programs, or just the programs that we associate with that highest level of mark in football, that it's hard to have guys drafted in the first round back-to-back years. And I think it's special for this Utah football team that when you look at it, that they got a chance to do that, and it should be what happens. And just having four guys drafted overall speaks to the quality of this team too. So I think it's great for the Utah brand. It shows how they have grown and improved too. And as I've talked about on this show before, this is unbelievably great for recruiting, because we already talked about the back-to-back Pac-12 champs. What does that show? You can win at Utah. What does getting drafted? It also means now that coming to Utah, you can get drafted high. You can develop. The story of Devin Lloyd coming in as obviously not a super high recruit. Dalton Kincaid transferring in from San Diego, not a super high recruit. Clark Phillips, yes, he was a very high recruit. What did that allow him to do? Play early on at Utah and shine, and now he's going to go in the second round, as we mentioned. So either, or hopefully the first, but second round probably. So you can win at Utah. You can develop your skills. I think it really is one of those reasons that's become such a good place to come to for guys who are these high level players like Spencer Fano, like a guy like Hunter Clegg eventually when he wraps up his mission, like a Mikey Matthews, because you can come in, you can win, you can play early. So I think you got to be really encouraged and excited overall about the look and makeup of this Utah football roster right now, and just the way that it's going to have a chance because of some of these young recruits you have coming in to continue this trend of first round picks, and then the cycle will repeat itself. You got guys that are playing well, winning at a high level, they'll get drafted. You're going to have more young recruits who go, oh, I want to be a part of that special program and everything they have going on right now. So I just think Utah football is in a great place right now. I think the other thing that's really nice for this Utah team is, like, even when Kyle Whittingham does eventually step away, I think whether it is, I said we expect it to be Morgan Scalley, who will be named the interim head coach, or not the interim head coach, my bad, the new head coach, Morgan Scalley. I just think people look at it like this is the same culture. It's going to be the same way they've done things. Nothing's really changed. The standard doesn't change. So I don't think there's going to be a drop off after that transition. So I expect this cycle to continue. And this is the part where it's just great to kick back and see like, hey, my school is putting guys in the NFL, and that recruits take. We all watch the draft. It's one of the major things. These recruits, everyone knows, like, man, Utah had a couple guys in the draft this year. Man, once the second year in a row, Utah's had a first rounder. So that does kind of show. And this carries a lot of cachet in meetings. If you are a tight end, like Coach Witt can go to these guys, Coach Whittingham Jr. too, can say, like, hey, you guys know Dalton Kincaid? Yeah, he was pretty good. Came here. We helped him grow his skills, gave him a great opportunity too. And now you see what he is. He's a first round pick in the NFL draft. So very appealing stuff for all the recruits that are coming in. But either way, just great that Utah's in this position to have so many players on the cusp of getting drafted. Just like last year, Utah had a ton of undrafted free agents. They had a bunch of guys that just missed out on getting drafted. So either cool. Once again, just a great position for this Utah football program to be in. And it's going to be fun to see how it all plays out when the NFL draft begins on April 28th. We'll have a lot more NFL draft coverage coming up, but the rest of the week, we'll be focusing on Utah spring ball. It's going to be fun and exciting to see. We're going to get another look at spring practice here on Locked On Utes. So we'll give you guys our updates after that if we're able to view it, talk about the reactions, what Coach Witt and everyone is going to be talking about. So make sure you guys tune into us on the rest of the week to do it on tomorrow's show. Ute Zone's Dante Guardi will be joining me to break down the biggest winners of week 2 of Utah football spring ball. Once again, that's coming up on tomorrow's Locked On Utes. But if you guys are in the market for a second listen every day, in the meantime, while you wait for that to come out, we recommend you check out Locked On College Basketball. Yes, the tournament is over. Madness may be ending, but there's still so much to recap, react to. And even college basketball has less of an offseason, just like football, because what do we have now? Transfer portal news always flying around. So you guys got to make sure you continue to listen to Locked On College Basketball, where hosts Isaac Shade and Andy Patton bring you everything you need to know on and off the court. Plus, you can hear from big name experts, coaches, and players throughout the basketball landscape. Locked On College Basketball, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Utes, but we'll see you tomorrow.